Welcome again, folks, to the Washington Babylon podcast with Ken Silverstein. Welcome to part 2 of our extended report on the Providence Community Safety Act and the so-called gang database that is illegally maintained by the Providence Police as a tool of racial profiling and terrorism against working-class Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the urban core. The Providence Youth Student Movement, or PrYSM, has recently filed a lawsuit against the Providence Police, the City of Providence, and Mayor Jorge Elorza, along with other public officials, for violating municipal law by maintaining the gang database after it was ordered abolished by the passage of the Community Safety Act. So what happened was the Community Safety Act was passed a few years ago, and as you'll hear in these interviews, it was revealed after the Community Safety Act was put into law and it explicitly directed the Providence Police that they had to abolish the gang database, that they found out after the fact that, the Providence Police are still maintaining this database, and so PrYSM has filed a lawsuit against the Providence Police for refusing to get rid of it.
And again, so that have you spoken with, or are there cases of how many cases are there, or is that not known of people who've been arrested simply because they were in this database, or is there just too little known at this point?
It's pretty opaque, and so it's hard to do a formal tabulation like that, but I do get some very good first-hand and second-hand accountings of what it's like dealing with these police and the gang database, and just how much of a malicious criminalization of being Black or brown in Providence, really what it's like. And it's worth pointing out, it's not like the Providence Police are doing this because they don't have anywhere else they could go to find drug busts. Providence is a gigantic college town. We have, 3 state colleges and a bevy of private colleges, including Brown University, which is, one of the Ivy Leagues, and then Providence College, which is one of the premier Catholic colleges. And I can attest from years of partying as a college student, you can find a shitload of Schedule I drugs on those campuses. So it's not like they are at a dearth of drug busts. They're intentionally creating an apartheid state where the people of color are over-policed and subjected to this militant, unaccountable reign of terror, while the middle and upper class kids at the colleges get to act like they're at the center of Mardi Gras in New Orleans. First up, we will speak with community leader and activist John Prince. As a formerly incarcerated person, he has been a major organizer of the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated with the Providence-based organization Direct Action for Rights and Equality, or DARE, and its Behind the Walls program. John is one of the major organic intellectual heavyweights of the African American community and testifies to the reality of being Black in Providence. Okay, so I'm here with John Prince. So John, it'll pick up all the sound and everything. You were just talking about Jawbreaker and...
Yeah, and Ryan. So, Jawbreaker and Ryan Lewis was detectives back in the 80s here in Providence. And they was ruthless. They would shake you down and take your weed, take your money, and tell you to get the hell out of here. It's really just, it's just extortion, really.
Right.
Until they messed with the wrong people, they started messing with the mob, which it was a lot of mob figures here on Federal Hill, and they wind up Ryan Lewis and Jawbreaker wind up getting blown up.
Wow.
At Indian Point Park on a boat, and they just blow the whole boat up, and but during their during their route of going around terrorizing people, folks knew them that when Ryan Lewis and Jawbreaker is around, everybody scattered like roaches. They put fear in a lot of people. They killed Albert Williams in downtown, still in a car, and they said, "Put your hands up." It was a way Boston Street where and they parked the cars and put your hands up. And he put his hand up. He had a screwdriver in his hand. They said they thought it was a weapon, and they just shot him. Shot the other guy on Cheese at the Jones Warehouse right by Central. Shot him in the warehouse because he was like, he did a B&E, and he didn't have no weapon. They just shot him anyhow. That's one incident.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot more when Colonel Pignagle was the chief of the police. He was not right in the head chief officer. And a lot of the police officers just went on a crusade with really no boundaries. So I'm going back when they used to have the blue cars.
Right.
It was like living in a city that the police was in control on all aspects. And I didn't like it, and that's what made me rebel against them. I got stitches all over my head from getting beat up with the Billy Jack and the blackjack, and they got this little thing that's iron. It weighs a lot. They hit you on the head and put a scar on it. So police to me is like. It remind me of a slave, because when the slave owner have the other slave go catch my slave, that's what the police do, go catch another black guy, and bring him in, lasso him in, put a rope on his neck, bring him out downtown.
Right.
Smack them around with phone books and stuff like that, and it's just the Providence Police has been insane for years. And then when they killed Cornell Young, which was another their own officer that went through the academy with them. And he responded to a Fighters incident that happened at this restaurant called Fighters on Valley Street. But he was off duty, and he come to respond to it. And his own police officer shot him dead because they said that they thought that he was a perpetrator because he identified himself as a police officer. So they covered up a lot of lies, a lot of scandalous stuff, and that's why my trust in the police is not that good. And then when I was in my own yard videotaping the police, and I had these females strip searching them. They were searching them, and the officer had his hand all in the lady's bra and and her waistband, and the other lady, and I told him, yo, you don't supposed to do that. And then the officer turned around and said, who are you? And I said, I'll show you who I am. I went in my house, got my phone, and I continued to videotape them. And the officer, Aspion, yeah. He was stating, why you videotape? You can't do that. We are undercover officers, and we don't our identity don't supposed to be exposed.
Okay.
And then he said, well, give me your ID. And I'm in my own backyard. I said, no, I'm not surrendering you my ID. For what? And so the other officer was already on my fence like a gargoyle, like that. And the other officer was on the other side. And so the commanding officer said, get that phone. So I ran in my house. I got a chance, I opened my front door, and then they tackled me. I fell in my house, popped right in this room. And we're wrestling. I'm not trying to get him. I got my phone in my hand. He's in my pocket. He's trying to get it, and we're wrestling all over the place. And they finally got the phone, and they left. And then the sergeant went through the phone, and he deleted the film. And then he tossed my phone back over the fence.
Wow.
At that point, I was like, how dare you run in my house? And I didn't get arrested. I didn't get a citation. I didn't get nothing. But, rough me up in my own front room and take my phone and delete it and throw it over the fence like I was some Johnny the Clown,
right.
So when I went to court, when I went to the what they call that, Attorney Affairs, and so the officers were saying, how come you didn't identify yourself as being a community protector or organizer or whatever, how you want to put it? I said, why should I have to identify myself as an organizer with people in the community? I wind up winning that case at the Attorney Affairs, and now that the officers, when they see me, they all know me by my first name now.
Gotcha.
And so the CSA is such an important instrument in this community because it will hold some kind of credibility for the police officers that can't police themselves. And when you can't police yourself, that's like a sheriff running wild with no credibility and no boundaries. So today, that's what the city of Providence is faced up against. In the recent incident when they shot 40 times on 95 over by Providence Place Mall, shot the lady in the face that she had nothing to do with it. There was an incident that took place that the police was chasing this white truck. They thought the white truck was the perpetrator truck. But it wasn't. They shot it in the wrong truck and shot the girl in the face right by Providence Place Mall as you go on the highway. And they was lined up 30 deep, just firing. Pop, 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 pop. It didn't take that many officers to obtain a guy and a girl. But they just shot into the car and shot the girl in the face. She had nothing to do with it. And they got the guy, but he's the wrong guy. They ain't the right guy. That they shot him dead. He's dead, but he's not the right guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's wrong with that picture?
Right.
I just don't understand the police brutality all of a sudden that is terrorizing not only Providence but the whole country. They're on their own crusade mission, and it seems like they want to exterminate people of color.
Right.
And I'm not going to have that, long as I have a voice and still continue to fight for social justice. It just gets me angry just sitting here doing this interview. How intense and how corrupt the police department is, and it starts from the top down, not from the bottom up, from the top down. So those that's going to get this story, you can look into all the incidents I just mentioned in archives. You look in that, and you'll see all the information I'm just saying, and you could use that and use your own terminology and your determination, what you feel. The police is out of control. They need accountability, and they also need a community civilian oversight board,
Right.
to oversee the police, and that's what they don't want. They don't want nobody watching them. They don't want to be summoned in to ask questions. How dare you summon me in to ask questions? I am the police, and that's the attitude they have. And we're just civilians. We're peasants. We don't pose a question them. And
Right.
so that is a big disparity against black and brown people, or even Asian people, all people in the city of Providence.
Right.
That sees this. Do I think the city of Providence got better? A little bit, but it's still a lot to do. There's a lot to clean up. They only clean up one bucket, one room, but it's 30 rooms, 40 rooms of corruption that they didn't even touch yet. So I hope that this story will get out to the right people, and I pray that this brutality with the police all over the country will come to a halt.
Gotcha.
And thank you for letting me share my story.
Can I ask you some more questions?
Yes, sir.
So, one of the kind of hallmarks of Providence history is the reign of Buddy Cianci.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about when he was in charge and what was going on during his time? I hear a lot of different takes on him from people in the community.
Buddy was the mayor. He wasn't a bad mayor, and especially in the urban cities. He started programs that gave teenagers work, and he started educational stuff. He was not afraid to come into the city and urban areas and talk to the residents. But he wasn't perfect either, you know. He went to federal prison for a short period of time, and I just think that folks like him and so many politicians that went to jail and is in the state house, that If I would have did the crime they did, I would still be buried. But they get 6 months, 5 months, maybe nine, maybe no months at all. Get personal conducts and stay out of trouble, or put the monitor device on your ankle for 3 months, and then you're all set. But if I would have did the same thing, or somebody else, that would hold like a 20-year sentence, which 20 years to serve, and then another 20 years probation, and then another 20 years probation and sentences of that they're gonna have over your head. So you're gonna have a rope around your neck for the rest of your life.
Right.
Well, these other politicians, and because they're white and they got little power, they don't get no time.
Right.
So CNC did time, but it was like in a minimum security in a country club.
Mm-hmm.
And he flattened out from that and went right. He got a job being a radio host.
Mm-hmm.
Went right straight to a job. But the average people don't even go to a job. The average people go to a shelter.
Right.
The average people go to one work a day job, and get peanuts for working all day for, So the justice or liberty is tilted in the wrong direction. It's not balanced right, and the lady of justice is leaning towards the folks that has the power to be, and it starts from the courthouse, from the Justice Department. You can take it all the way up to the FBI.
Right.
So it's just no justice. When there's no justice, there's no peace.
Right. So when I was talking with Vanessa, one of the things that we spoke about was that, if Providence was serious about having a legitimate, let's stop drugs in Providence, let's get serious about going after supply of, heroin or serious date rape drugs, what have you, they could go to Brown or PC or any of these other colleges that are just basically party mills, and they would find everything they want, and they could make their quota for cases in a month. But instead, they put their energy into terrorizing people in South Providence and the West End, and it's basically this apartheid system where the people with the money and the lighter complexion are able to carry on like they're basically living in Amsterdam where drugs are decriminalized.
Yeah.
And then down here, it's a complete nightmare every day if you're poor and you've got darker skin.
Right, absolutely. And it's like, it's almost like a continuing from decade, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse, and now they talk about police sensitivity training. What the hell does that mean? Sensitivity training. What's that supposed to learn more about black folks, or learn more about how you interact, or what the hell does that mean in sensitivity training? And so they put these names in these places like they think they're doing something, but they're not doing anything at all. It's almost like Houdini. Now you see me, now you don't.
Right.
So it doesn't work. They need to dismantle that whole book booklet they got and rebuild that joint into a new curriculum of how to deal with people with mental health problems, how to deal with people that's drug addiction, how to deal with people that got post-traumatic stress syndrome, how to deal with these people that's been medicated by drugs, and even the veterans, um, that has drug addiction and they don't even respect them after they went and got their legs blown off fighting for this country that now the country turned their backs on it.
Mm-hmm.
So the country, I think that what President Trump said, we're going to make America great again, and he means by that I want to make American white again.
Right.
Period. And I think that's what the tug of war is right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like us against them or something. And it shouldn't be like that, but unfortunately, that's where we at.
Right. So when we talked earlier yesterday, you said this started first was the Cornell Young shooting kind of mobilized the community, and that led into the project that eventually became the Community Safety Act campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of it was trying to get the Police Accountability Review Authority that's supposed to have civilian oversight going. And then you were saying even if they did technically reinvigorate it through the passing of the Community Safety Act, it's been kind of a joke. So I was wondering what you could tell me.
Well, okay. Well, the first para board with Cornell Young, we was 2.5 years, and we had like 8 cases on deck, waiting to be here, and it never been heard. It never been talked about. It never been any discipline on the police officers.
Right.
So it was a joke in the sense that we got more power than you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get ready to hear a case, we'll do it. Until then, don't call us, we'll call you. And this is the para board. So we did an action on para. We crashed the board meeting. Held the board hostage. We threatened. We marched. We made noise. We spoke out. Spoke up. We did everything possible humanly that we could, and it just wasn't enough. We didn't have, even though we have the community, but we didn't have power.
Right.
So eventually, that para board sizzled out.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it's like you light a salute, a firecracker, but you don't get the bang, but it just sizzle right out. And that's how that board just sizzle right out without, and all the monies we put into it. We flew the new chairperson, all the way from Indianapolis.
Oh wow.
To come here to be the chairperson of para. And that was a disaster, paying her $150,000 a year.
Wow.
For nothing.
Yeah.
Waste of money. A waste of people's time. I don't think the Providence really want a para.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a formality that they're going through right now, but in reality, they don't want it, and they never wanted it from day one. Um, I can't think of anything good about Board back then and the Board today. It's just a laughing. The police department's laughing at us, and they like it like that. And I don't know how I can wipe this the grin off their faces.
Gotcha.
And I'm so confused on how to do that without getting myself in trouble. So I guess time will tell what happens from here. And I guess we have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting more fighting, which it seemed like we've been fighting since the 60s and the 50s and marching and black folks and fighting. I'm just tired of fighting because I think holding signs and big rallies and stuff, it just doesn't faze them. The only thing that fazes these white folks, if you take their monies from them, find a way to cripple them on their monies, or you face them with the violence that they bring into you.
Gotcha.
And that's the only two things they can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It makes a lot of sense.
that's how I feel. You know, I'm gonna close with this. I think Frederick Douglass said it's easier to raise children in your community, but it's harder to repair broken men in your community. And when I use the word broken men that has been incarcerated, men that come back from Vietnam War, that don't get the same privilege that other folks get.
Mm-hmm.
Broken men that want to bring their family to the suburbs, but the suburbs don't want them there. And so your spirit, it's almost your spirit is amputated. When your spirit is amputated, it's cut off. There's no anesthetic for that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. It just gets me mad when they talk about shit like that. So as we push forward, we'll see how it goes and keep our fingers crossed and hope that this board can get their act together to really knuckle down to hear some of these cases that's in front of them today. Thank you.
Awesome.
You have anything else on it?
Yeah. So for years you've done behind the walls work with DARE in terms of working with incarcerated people and formerly incarcerated people, and I was wondering if you could talk about the way the system works hand in hand with what Providence Police and the Providence kind of social ordering is to be weighed against the formerly incarcerated and to suck people in with things like the school to prison pipeline and stuff like that.
True. Well, it's like all the compartments are in cahoots. The police, the court system, and the prison system. And I was in school when I just got released from prison. I was only out close to 90 days. And I enrolled into this program to learn a trade to build houses, learn how to build houses. And so after school, I come home and my brother asked me, "What did you do?" Huh? What do you mean what I do? Man, they have 40 cops looking for you over here. Me? For what? I didn't know. I was in school all day. Called the Providence Police station. They said they don't know what I'm talking about. We're not looking for you. Which Providence wasn't looking for me. Barrington Police was looking.
Okay.
But Providence, I was in my driveway. Providence rolled up in my driveway, sitting in my car. They snatched me out of my car, brought me to Providence Police, and they held me for Barrington to come and get me. And so the perpetrator that really did this beating in Barrington, the cop got into a high-speed chase with this guy. And the guy, he weaved and heaved and, spin out, and the other cop that was chasing him, his cruiser tipped over. And he wound up breaking his collarbone.
Wow.
And so they was putting fear in me because they said, Providence said that, man, you gonna get effed up now. Cause when Barrington comes and get you, and I was only 19, 20, and he wasn't joking. Some big cops from Barrington came and got me and put me in the back seat. I had a cop here and a cop here, and I'm in the middle, squeezed in, and they drive me to Barrington. And the other cops said, "Do you remember this road?" "I don't remember this road." And he hit me with the blackjack on my kneecap. And I was hollering, I was crying. "You don't remember this road? Huh?" And remind you, I'm not even the guy that did this shit. So my school went to court for me. 30 students showed up to court. My instructor, the director of the program, and it had my signature, because you got to sign for your book, your building maintenance book. You got to sign your name in and sign your name out at when you're done. Both signatures in and out. And I thought I had my case, but I still wind up doing 4 years. I was found guilty because I was a violator, because I had time over my head. And so they violated me, did 4 years, and gave me 8 more years over my neck. And so when I said that it was all in cahoots, it starts with the police, the court system, and the prison system. They're all connected. and there's no justice. Now, fast forward from my story to now, it's the same thing. They set bail where you can't make it, and so you have to sit in prison in the intake, and maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, without even being convicted of. And sometimes they let you out after 3 years because they didn't build enough of a case. But do you ever get compensated for your time that you're there? You know, I'm sorry, buddy. Here's a few grand. We made a mistake. Nothing. Just kick your ass out. You know. And so what I feel is happening now is that the court system is not in your favor, especially if you're a person of color. The bail they set on you is so outrageous. It don't have no time over. You don't have probation or suspended sentence over your head, because that's like you're guilty before you even found guilty. What? I'm guilty before I even been found guilty. What happened with the chance of innocence? You know, so they're so stacked up against you, you don't have a fighting chance. And so that's why some folks just give up. You know, I can't make it out here. You know, why should I? Why should I try to be a productive member of society when society don't want me? If society don't want you, then who are you?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a terrible situation, not only in Providence but around the country, in Ferguson, in Detroit, in California. You know, it's just it's just a conspiracy plot against you, and you're against the you're against the police department, you're against the court system, the jurisdictionary system, and then you're against the prison system. So you're fighting on so many levels that you're gonna have to surrender and just say, well, you beat me down, I can't fight anymore. And that's how they did with the Native Americans. Mm-hmm. That's how they did with a lot of what Malcolm X, with Fred Hampton, with Martin Luther King, or all the civil rights folks. They just shot them down before they don't stop, before they slow the momentum down, and then folks just sit around with their hands in their pockets. Now what we do now, our leaders are gone. What we do, we're lost. If you're a lost sheep, you're gonna get picked off by the wolf. Gotcha. And that's what happens. Whew, I guess that's I don't know.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Important stuff. Is there anything else that comes to mind you want to talk to in closing?
In closing, there's a video on Facebook with my story as I challenged the police department. I was nervous because I never won anything. I just took the stitches on top of my head and the broken jaws, and all my life never really challenged the police. I just said it was part of life, getting beat up. But this time I challenged the police, and Um, I think I want to say is if you feel as though you have the right and you're not guilty of anything, challenge them. Don't let them run over you. And that's what they want to do, this steamroll right over you. Stand up for your rights. Don't be afraid. There's organizations out here that can help.
Folks, we are approaching the end of the fiscal year, meaning it is the season for tax-deductible charitable donations. One of the coalition members that helped with the passage of the Community Safety Act was Direct Action for Rights and Equality, a member-run nonprofit that has been at the forefront of working-class African American community organizing and struggle for decades. If you have the chance, please consider supporting them via www.daretowin.org. That's www.daretowin.org. Next, we will speak to Shannah Kurland, a local attorney who authored the legal complaint in U.S. District Court for the District of Rhode Island. So, Shannah, you open up the complaint talking about how the Providence Police has built this intelligence assessment database, quote unquote, and it's also referred to the gang database. And I was wondering if you could explain both what it is and also because you cite it for trampling on the First Amendment due process under the Fifth and 14th Amendment, how those kind of technical details work out.
Sure. And there's a lot, so I can try to go through it piece by piece and then just kind of flag it if I miss a piece of that. What the gang database is something that, that's a question that I think PrYSM in particular has spent close to, over 15 years trying to actually understand. When folks first heard about it, it was, our understanding was that literally it was like a notebook that somebody had with names scribbled down. There would be officers that would just sort of subtly tell a youth that, like, hey, you're on the gang database, you're on the gang list, just kind of mentioning it as, like, so you better watch out in that context. And we didn't, so the impression was that it was some kind of just list someone kept somewhere or pictures or names that got handed out. Sometimes youth, and I remember a particular one, I think it was 16 at the time, Cambodian young man, testifying about how, just went over to a friend's house, him and some other friends, and the friend's brother, the police are coming after the friend's brother, and then all these younger kids that were there, when they kind of pulled them out of the house, they wanted to take their pictures and sort of kind of speaking like with pride about how these pictures were going to be in the gang database, so therefore you're gang members and we're taking your picture. But other than sort of those little sort of, hints that got dropped in a really kind of, just aggressive manner, we hadn't had much knowledge about what exactly it is and how it works. And so, occasionally hearing things about from other cities, we did some research, back in, I want to say maybe around 2010, 11, and got sort of the first time we'd seen a copy of an actual written policy from Providence Police, and that's included as one of the attachments of the complaint that sort of described at that time, under that chief, whose name was Esserman, what the gang database was, and it, became clear it was this very elaborate collection of names and information. There's also, we see kind of exchanges between the Providence Police and the state, somebody who was assigned to the state police, somebody assigned to work at the Fusion Center, and asking for pictures and info, and then the person at the Fusion Center writing back that, like, I'm really not supposed to give you this, you're supposed to get it on your own. And so it was like a thing that there was also this information sharing context between local and state police. We learn more about sort of, not even so much, they still haven't really shared much about the mechanics of it, But going back like years, and I remember just being sort of a PrYSM supporter or ally back during, I want to say, around that sort of the late 2000s, so 2008, 9. And PrYSM Youth would try to meet with the chief of police, say, hey, we need to know what exactly are the criteria for putting somebody on the gang database. Oh, we can't tell you that, it's secret. Okay, well, how does a person go about finding out if they're on the gang database? Oh, we're not going to do that. We're not going to let you know. So, it was just this very top secret. We're going to put your name on this thing, but not let you know why, and not even let you know if we're doing it. And meanwhile, they have, just the lists of people and these, this profiling of people, and particularly young people of color, that, just kind of like building and growing, and nobody, can just put a definition on this monster, and nobody knows, why they're on there and what's going to happen and what it means. So, the concerns continued to grow, and PrYSM kept getting kind of shut down at every angle. Nobody else locally, at least, was really addressing it. So then, when things happen, there's, state legislation being passed to add 10-year enhancement, the gang enhancement if someone was convicted of a felony. And the way it's worded, it's crazy, because you could actually just be a gang member, alleged gang member, while with a co-defendant who had, or you could be the co-defendant of someone who was alleged to be a gang member, even if you weren't, and you could still get this 10-year enhancement. It's a crazy piece of legislation. So that goes through, and, there's just all these potential costs and dangers to people. And so when folks, PrYSM together with other groups, started working on the Community Safety Act, and, it just started as an open brainstorm. What are all the things we could try to put into a bill to try to change the dynamic of power that police have in our communities? And that was one of the things that came out loud and clear that needed to happen. And so that was a cornerstone. And, through the process, the 5 years it took to work on the CSA, it was actually ended up being a great opportunity to educate people, too, because there's a lot of people who just hadn't heard it existed at all, didn't have any idea how it worked. And, that became an opportunity for them to learn more about it and to try to challenge it.
You mentioned the due process under the 5th and 14th Amendments. I was wondering if you could elaborate on what you think or what you've seen has been substantially impacted because of this gang database.
Yeah, and I'm going to sort of do it in more generic, and then if I have to give a more precise legal argument, I got to go back and dig up sort of notes and put it together a little more fancy. But, the basic concept is if you're going to have some kind of, let's say, a punishment at the hands of the government, or some kind of, they're going to do something to you, the concept of due process is that they might have a right to do something to you, but there has to be some fair way of, being able to have notice about it, being able to defend yourself. So, I can't just say, okay, you committed this crime and stick you in jail, or I can't give you a punishment or take something, deny you something that's your right to have, without some kind of fair, due process, some kind of way of being fairly giving you a chance to sort of see what I'm accusing you of or what I'm saying you did, and to a way that you can, actually have a fair shot of challenging it. And so the idea is that with this gang list, the way they have it, and again, the sort of this new kind of iteration, the Providence Police, well, it's not even new. They tried it a year and a half ago, and we very easily convinced the city solicitor to just shut it down because it was so blatantly illegal. But that's another side story I'm happy to share with you if we come back to it. But so that there's, that when you look at those different criteria that are listed in the current, the temporarily rescinded policy, you can see, like, you wouldn't even know, like, wait, I wrote a letter to, a cool dean or a cool publication. This is my Facebook page my friend does. And all of a sudden, like, oh, wait, that's a quote-unquote gang publication, and now I have 8 points on the database, huh? Not that you would be notified when that happened, but that could happen without a chance to even, defend yourself. You could get all these repercussions, all these, the different criteria kind of get nailed with them and get points through them without knowing, oh, wait a minute, it's because I was in a picture with a bunch of my friends that are like our let's get our middle school friends together party, and that's called a gang photograph because some of the kids may have been in a gang or think they're in a gang. So there's just sort of this due process as you're all of a sudden now you're lined up in this particular frame that can be very dangerous for the police to be thinking of you that way. And you didn't even know you were getting put on that, much less have a chance to challenge it. If you've been on the gang database before, they're not going to notify you of that fact. You have to proactively ask them, hey, am I on the gang database? Only if you're now added to it, which supposedly they're not doing, would you get notified of it and then have a chance to challenge it?
One of the things that jumps to mind immediately is simultaneous with these developments, we've seen in the past 3 years the heightening of the xenophobia and invocation of gang violence with venues like Fox News and the concept of these gangs from Latin America coming in. I'm wondering what kind of overlap, if any, you think there is in that sort of realm.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely, and this is one of the areas that's really mysterious, and hopefully we can expose some light by taking them to court and by, having to go to litigation. But for instance, the information sharing between local police departments designating people as quote unquote gang members and ICE, we don't even know like how that works, where it starts, where it stops. There's these sort of formations called fusion centers that have to do, the federal government coordinates through a local body here in Rhode Island. It's the state police, and they hook up with local police, and they all share information back and forth. And Department of Homeland Security, is hooked into that. So it's incredibly not just possible, but likely, and in some places been very thoroughly documented, that the information that accuses somebody or says somebody's a gang member is easily available to ICE. So that's like in terms of the impact of that, but in terms of how the frame of it, I think it's very much true. It's sort of like it's a way of kind of just you don't have kids from from Canada being called gang members. You don't have, European kids being called gang members. It's basically, I think it is xenophobia, but xenophobia in a very white supremacist context.
You also bring up the issues that arise on the level of the Rhode Island Constitution and general laws pertinent to racial profiling. I'm wondering, I know this might be going far into the weeds, that it goes way detailed, but I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so, with for the most part, a lot of those state constitutional claims, they parallel the federal constitution. So it's a chance to, just give a workout to get the muscles moving of our state constitution so that they don't atrophy. And then, but in addition, there's some, so our, Article 1, Section 6, for instance, of the Article 1 of the state constitution, actually the courts have found it to have a to have a stronger application in some situations than the U.S. Constitution Fourth Amendment, like the parallel one. So Article 1, Section 6 on the state constitution, and then Fourth Amendment on the U.S. Constitution. But there's some situations where a state constitution is actually a little stronger. So it's always, I just sort of, believe when we're, taking civil rights claims to court, it's always good to have a state constitutional claim too, if it fits. And usually, it's just if there's a federal one, there's usually the parallel state one. And then, and then the state claims. So when you sue in federal court, you can add in if you also have a state claim. So if I hit you with my car and you you sue me for negligence, right? That's a state claim, so you take me to state court. There can be some exceptions, but if you had a federal claim on it too, then you can take the case to federal court and just add in the state claims.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And specifically, but the state claim for the state statute on racial profiling, that one, we haven't found. I'm not sure. I'm not positive on this. I'm not gonna say don't quote me because it's an article. I can't say that. From the research we've done so far, we haven't found another, at least in federal court, a claim, a lawsuit invoking that a violation of that bill, that law, and that's been in since 2014, I want to say 2015. So it's been there a few years, and I haven't been able to find a case of somebody, actually suing under that bill.
You talk about the way that people would be added to the membership, including things as rough as they were stopped by the police and forced to take off their shirts to show tattoos. Isn't there some sort of kind of rule or procedure based around like the Miranda rights saying what somebody is obliged to show and what they don't have to show in those regards?
Yeah, well, and it's actually, so Miranda rights is different. It's, the wording we hear on TV, and that's really just more about if they're going to interrogate you. So a lot of times, like if somebody says, hey, they didn't read me my rights, they only have to do that if they're interrogating you and if they want to use whatever you say in court. So most of the time that's not going to happen, so the Miranda rights aren't actually required. But you have, but basically, so this would come more into the Fourth Amendment. You've got the Fourth Amendment, basically, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable seizures and searches shall not be violated, right? So if it's an unreasonable seizure or an unreasonable search, what the courts have sort of boiled that down to mean is that you can own, there's sort of two levels of it. If they have quote unquote reasonable suspicion, which is kind of a joke because they can, and Rhode Island law is pretty bad on it, they can come up with just about anything to say reasonable suspicion, like, this whole concept of furtive movements, or you looked at me, or you didn't look at me. Like there's literally a case that cites that the guy was sweating profusely, like a lot. It sounds like he was sweating a lot, but why wouldn't you get nervous when police stop you? That's a normal reaction. So with reasonable suspicion, they're allowed to basically do what's called a Terry pat, like a Terry stop. If you hear people refer to that, it's from a case, Terry v. Ohio. And the idea is if there's something like more than a hunch that's articulable suspicion, they can stop you and talk to you. You don't have to talk to them, but they can stop you and take a look, try to get you to talk, and keep you there for an undetermined, but not a long time, but basically. But then what that turns into, if on top of that they have a reason to think you're armed, a bulge in your pocket that looks like a gun, not a cell phone, a gun, not a pack of cigarettes, a gun, then they could pat you down, or they saw a flash of metal when you put your hand in your jacket before, and they think, oh, wait, that could be a knife, oh, shoot. Then they're allowed to do this just patting down the exterior of your clothes, not going in your pocket, not trying to touch anything other than something that has the shape of a weapon or the feel of a weapon for the outside. But what they, and that's only, again, and that's still like a bump up that they usually don't have. Even then, that doesn't allow them to like remove your clothing. That's like a complete and total violation, and take a picture and, ask you to remove a part of your clothing so they can take a picture of your tattoo is a definite Fourth Amendment violation.
So you just earlier alluded to issues you had with the city solicitor and the law. I was wondering if you could elaborate some on that.
Yeah, this, and it kind of traces the history of it in the lawsuit, in the complaint in the facts section. You can see, when the police department first pulled this crap, we found it, just by accident, checking out if they had the new policy up, and immediately brought it to the attention of the city solicitor. So this was like the very beginning of the new year. Like everybody's still sort of vacation mode, humongous snowstorm coming, people are going to be, and so we got it to him, and he responded immediately because, I think because it was so obviously illegal, and, said they would pull the policy while they were trying to figure out a way to change it. Okay, great, fine. And then again, sort of by accident, we discovered that, and this is actually Justice that found this just doing some general access to public records requests, that the policy almost identical to the one they pulled was back up. So, hey, you guys knew this was obviously no-brainer, it's illegal, you pulled it, so why is it back up? You better pull it again and let's sit down and talk. And then, okay, we have to look into it. We'll let you know. Like, what do you mean you'll let us know? It's illegal, pull it. Like, well, we need a little bit of time to get back to you, just to, like, okay, how about by Juneteenth? And, and then back and forth, like, what the hell? And finally they called us in to meet. They said, lawyers do. They're like, oh, can we meet with you? Like, because you're the lawyer, so we're only going to talk to you. Like, no, we're an organization, so you can talk to more than just me. So, the three of us sat down with the city solicitor and an assistant city solicitor, and he basically kind of indicated that his client, which I take to mean Colonel Clements, because that's, who is in charge of the police department, was not in agreement yet with taking it down. So basically, like, meaning that the city department head, even after the city attorney tells them, oh, this is illegal, you can't do it. I mean, I wasn't in the room. I mean, they're not going to share their conversation with us. But, that's pretty, like, the inference is, yeah, that's what happened. And he still wouldn't take it down. So now it's not just us telling him it's illegal. It's his own lawyer telling him, the city's own lawyer telling him that it's illegal. Nope, I'm not going to take it down. So, like, in sort of subtle ways, the city solicitors are kind of communicating this to us. And so our position is like, you know what, talk to the mayor. The mayor's supposed to be in charge of the police chief. The mayor supposedly some big, was a law professor, right? Not just a lawyer, but a law professor, has taught, if not constitutional law, he's taught civil rights classes. I know when I was at Roger Williams, he taught civil rights classes. I didn't happen to take one with him. And never more would I. Obviously, for reasons that become more obvious every day. But, why is he not keeping control of his people? So really what you have here then is a situation where if sort of the political executive branch, politically elected, agree or disagree, but, I'm not, I believe, the election was not rigged, wrong, but not rigged. And that's the political branch, and its appointee saying, and its responsibility to say, okay, here's the law, we're supposed to follow the law. But then you have the paramilitary body within it saying, you know what, fuck the law. We're just going to do what we want to do because that's what we want to do. I mean, that's pretty much like sort of kind of the same dynamics as the beginnings of a military dictatorship.
Yeah.
Very minor urban version. Okay, fine. But if you got the police department not giving a shit what the city solicitors, what the law department tells them is illegal, and the mayor just stepping back and not wanting to get anybody mad at him or create a fuss or just not wanting to know because it's bad news and now I have this big problem with the schools and everybody hates me, boo-hoo-hoo, so I don't want to put my foot in another problem and have the police commissioner be mean to me or the police chief be mad at me or mean to me or whatever. I mean, that's like, okay, who rules the city then? Is it the mayor or is it the police commissioner? And so let's just fucking call it a little mini, mild maybe, but urban military dictatorship.
Right. And when talking with Vanessa and John about this, I said, if you want to go find perps for all sorts of bad activity or find drug busts, you can do that very easily at the campuses that are peppered all over the city. There's a lot of hard drugs and a lot of bad behavior, but instead it's targeting the people in South Providence and it's creating this apartheid state.
Mm-hmm. And what's so messed up about it is it's not just targeting in terms of that's one level of we're going to target you by going after you, by surveilling you, by arresting you, by illegally searching you, sometimes by framing you, and just put effort into getting you accused of crimes and locked up for crimes and, on a constant cycle of probation, arrest, new sentence, et cetera. But it's also saying, and we're going to use this really cool system we have that we're not really supposed to use like this to actually label you then as this, like, to criminalize your very identity, that who you are is criminal.
So you're a Providence resident, you've got children of your own, you're a taxpayer. What are your own personal feelings as a person who has a stake in the city?
So I have to say the only gang that I know of in the city, and I live in, in the South Side, and, I like my street, my block, and, there are things that happen, where there's, there are things that happen where things, there have been shootings near my home and, people do get hurt and we're human beings. We do hurt each other. That happens. But the only gang I'm actually, and I won't say scared of, but that bothers me, that upsets me, that makes me think that worries me, that bad things can happen is the gang that are all dressed in blue known as the Providence Police Department. There's, people I know who have been in gangs, who are close to gang members, who are currently they're like the exact same ratio of good people, bad people, nice people, boring people, cool people. It's like they're people. It's not, the idea of saying there are actually gangs and there are some people who are members of gangs. We're not saying, oh, no, gangs don't exist. There are gangs. And if you look in particularly like sort of digging into the example here, like with Southeast Asian gangs, is that, there is like human beings, like when you go through rough circumstances, you find ways to bind together. And, there's a sort of a kind of shape that can take that can be called a gang. But, families are like thrown here after major trauma and genocide and war caused by the United States. And, young people are like thrown into neighborhoods where there's already like a lot of stress and a lot of like, people have just been worked over so badly. And yeah, you're going to like it's very natural to form an association and a group and to bond and to build family when your own family is like got, stuff that's just like too much to bear and not working right the way you want it to work. And so, yeah, you create a new family. It's very normal and natural. And like, and there are things that groups of people sometimes do that are illegal. There are things that groups of people do that are healthy, that are unhealthy. So the gangs are no better or worse, than other. I mean, I'd much rather deal with gang members than frat boys. Jesus. PrYSM has been working on this issue, fighting this for, just some dignity, being able to be treated with fairness and dignity for so long, and finally passing the CSA. I mean, standing up to people, keeping the coalition strong together around, we are not going to throw this gang section under the bus, and people who actually are gang members, we're not going to throw them under the bus when we talk about it. We're not going to compromise on this just to make the rest of it go through, because this is, I think there's somebody who wasn't in the coalition asked, well, why don't you just get rid of that section then if it's so controversial? No, this is the core, the heart of it. This is the reason that that PrYSM got involved in all the rest of it, and kind of, took so much leadership on the CSA fight, is because this issue has always been there and burning, and we finally win it. We finally win it, and then they just try to ignore it. Like, hell no, you can't do that. We won it. You need to do what we said now, and what the city council, the legislative body of this city, our city, said you have to do, and stop trying to pretend that you're above the law. It doesn't count. And this has, been our struggle and our dream for so long. You're not going to just dump it.
Folks, as we approach the end of the year, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to support PrYSM, the Providence Youth Student Movement.